West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand why this is an issue.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, it's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on the Monday, June 30th, 2025. Bill and I are laughing because we were wondering what Fox is covering right now.
Yeah.
Officers use cracker to lure escaped pig.
That's what they led with this hour.
Captivity at 9 o'clock hour.
Yeah, this is 9 o'clock hour on a Monday. So we're getting out of the really big
in
topics.
late June.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. That's great.
It's just chaos. And
Yeah,
we'll
it is.
add to it in the 9 o'clock hour. Billy and I are going to talk about all these great Supreme Court decisions that came out on Friday. Do you feel freer? You should, because thank God for some good conservatives on the Supreme Court allowing you to have a little bit more control over what your kids are learning in schools, to allow states to prevent kids from accessing pornography. Why that wasn't 9-0 is shocking to me. And then, yes, a district judge could no longer implement a nationwide injunction, like they were just throwing them out like Skittles against Donald Trump during the last few months. Things are changing, and you have the Supreme Court to thank. We'll get into that and more this hour. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning. Monday, 62 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 78. Today it's going to be a beautiful day up and down the Front Range. News is presented by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now is the time to stand with Israel. Call 800-301-1188. That's 800-301-1188, or go to 710knus.com and click on the big red Stand with Israel banner at the top of the page. Our top story.
No, it has to pass the Senate, then it goes back to the House, and the House can't make any changes to the legislation. And there have been major changes that have been made on the Senate side, and we'll see if those changes satisfy House Republicans, some of whom don't like that this bill got exceedingly larger on the Senate side. It's now a $4 trillion plus piece of legislation.
John Decker on with Jeff and Billy earlier this morning. A votorama on 47's big, beautiful bill is happening in the Senate. It remains to be seen if Republicans have enough votes to get the tax and spending bill on DJT's desk by their self-imposed July 4th deadline. And the president on Fox News Channel over the weekend.
I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you that. I hate to say yes. I'd like to say yes, but the problem is if we're 2 days late or 5 days late, everybody says, oh, he had a tremendous failure. Whatever it is, as long as we have it. It's very important. If we don't have it, there's a 68% tax increase. If we don't have it, the debt ceiling extension is very important. They gave a debt ceiling, the Republicans gave a debt ceiling because of the importance of doing it. They did that for the good of the country. And Republicans voted for that. They did a big favor. I don't know that I would have done it, to be honest with you, but whatever. They did a favor. Now the Democrats won't do that favor back.
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
And at approximately 2 p.m. this afternoon, it was reported that firefighters were receiving shots fired at them. We now have 2 deaths.
2 Idaho firefighters are dead and a third is injured after being ambushed while responding to a brush fire. Nearly 300 police officers descended on the area and exchanged gunfire with the suspect. They were able to locate the shooter's cell phone signal, which led them to a deceased man with a gun nearby. Richard Holtorf wants to be the vice chair of the Colorado Republican Party, and Holtorf was on with Jeff and Billy last hour. And as the great Michael Sugar Ray Richardson famously said, the ship be sinking. That's what Holtorf said about the Republican Party in Colorado, and he wants to bring it back with teamwork, which makes the dream work, with Britta Horn leading.
And that's what I'm going to bring, because teams that work together win. Teams that fight and don't work together don't win. I wouldn't say she's excited to have me, because I'm one of those people that I'm a little Western. I'm a maverick. And I'm on a run, and I'll work with anybody to accomplish the mission. And what is the mission of the state GOP, Colorado? It is to elect Republicans to statewide offices in the state House and the state Senate. Remember, that is the primary mission. It is the most important mission. And if we don't focus on that, then we continue to lose.
Holtorf says Britta is working hard to bring all Republicans together. After almost 2 months of some of the filthiest stories ever told in a courtroom, the Sean Combs, a.k.a. Diddy, trial is coming to an end. Rory O'Neill had an update for Jeff and Billy.
Jury deliberations finally start today. There are 5 federal charges against Diddy, including racketeering, transportation over state lines for the purposes of prostitution, conspiracy in there as well. So a lot for the jury to process here as they work through the evidence they've heard over these past 7 weeks. You know, the defense didn't put on much of a case. They cross-examined and questioned the prosecution witnesses, but they did not call any witnesses of their own and relied on their closing argument that was delivered on Friday. So let's see what the jury does here.
4th of July travel starting to heat up. AAA predicting over 72 million people will venture at least 50 miles from home over the Independence Day holiday. That's an additional 1.3 million road travelers compared to 2024.
Blake, this is the new Wagon Queen family truckster. This is a damn fine automobile. If you want my honest opinion, beats the hell out of the sports wagon, but I want to make you happy, huh?
Sorry, Jeff, we have to play that every year during this time.
I love it. Something I found really interesting over the weekend is like nobody was on 285 going into the mountains.
No kidding.
No traffic. Normally that backs up both Saturday morning and Saturday evening. It's people. Nothing.
Wow,
nothing
that's great
going up
for
there.
you.
Well, yeah, it was. It makes me concerned about maybe tourism into that part of the state, whether or not people are visiting.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting because I saw like hundreds of out-of-state plates,
did you?
Northern Colorado, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
just all over, and big, huge campers everywhere, a lot of boats, out-of-state license plates. So that's funny you mentioned that. Maybe they're just not heading out to that part of the state. Like you said, that's good for you, though. Great for you.
Right.
Wimbledon is underway in London. That's a great time of year. I love that. I love seeing Wimbledon because Independence Day and all the grilling is going on. So we're at the best time of year.
Brewers down to their last out here. Tying run at second. Here's Caleb Durbin.
This ball in the air to left, playable out there for Beck, and the Rockies have won it. Tyler Kinley nails it down. The Rockies in 11 shock the Brewers 4-3.
And they take on the Astros tomorrow night at Coors. So a win for the Rockies. I was laughing. The analyst on that play, you hear him go, uh-oh.
Brewers down to their last out here. Tying run at second. Here's Caleb Durbin.
Uh-oh. That's awesome. That is a true analyst. He knows the swing of the bat. He knows that thing isn't going over the fence. He knows it's a pop fly and the game is over. That was good. Let's see. Final round of the U.S. Senior Open.
It's official. Padraig Harrington is a 2-time U.S. Senior Open champ.
Padraig Harrington. Love that name. Wins the U.S. Open at the Broadmoor in the Springs. 60 in Arvada, 59 in Superior, 62 in Denver. And Jeff and Bill, they continue. Blake Olson.
Balake. Where is Balake at? Yes, sir.
My name's Blake.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Late yesterday, a cool front came in from the north, so temperatures here to start the week are going to be a little bit cooler, but we're also going to continue to have some afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Comfortable temperatures in the upper 70s to near 80 today. A few late-day showers and thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. Warming back up to 85 to 90 Tuesday, a late-day thunderstorm. 80s to lower 90s Wednesday through Friday with late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Can you breathe in the freedom provided to you by the U.S. Supreme Court? Well, I hope you can, because 3 big rulings. By the way, my wife called not only those rulings, but who authored them perfectly the other day when we had her on to try to provide some analysis on the Planned Parenthood Supreme Court decision, which was a lot more complicated. But big 3 wins on Friday. Things looking great. Even the Wall Street Journal writing the Supreme Court's good sense on parental rights and porn sites. Supreme Court on Friday, in a historic conservative achievement and a useful exercise, or today's Supreme Court is a historical conservative achievement and a useful exercise, and occasionally to imagine liberal justices in charge. Consider 2 rulings that the court issued Friday at the end of another excellent term. One lets religious parents opt their children out of transgender story time in elementary school. The other lets states require that pornography websites verify the age of their users. Now, I kind of understand the argument against religious parents not being able to opt their children out of transgender story time. Like, I can see it. I don't get why the pornography website's age verification wasn't 90. How is keeping kids from accessing that stuff a violation of free speech?
I side with what the intent and idea is, but I think, again, I'm not saying that I support the dissenters, but I think part of the dissent is based on verification, the process. Does this prevent what you're looking for? Why couldn't I just use somebody else's age verification or ID in order to access the porn? Couldn't I just go get dad or mom's ID and do that as well? So is this necessarily that much of a barrier? And I think the other one is, and if I had to guess, I didn't read the dissent, so I don't know. I would have to guess on how and where you're going to store this vital information, because this would be personal identifiable information that may or may not include social security numbers. It could include partials. It could just be the last 4 digits of a social security number. But if I am a hacker in another country, I am going to target that database. I'm going to try as hard as I can to get in there. Do you remember when they
got what was that website where you could get to cheat on
the cheating. They got a whole bunch in there.
I want to say Mother Jones, but that's an actual news website.
Mother Jones is the super libs. I don't remember what it is. But but they hacked into
weird.
it.
It was
something.
It was like somebody's name.
Yeah, it was. I have no idea. It was someone's name. It was...
And you remember then there was a database you could put people's names into to see if they signed up for it?
See if they signed up for it. So that's what I think the problem is they're looking at the idea that this information can or could be exploited or exposed. Outside of that, I don't see any real issue, because if you're going to make products or information that is not permissible for those under 18 available online, there does need to be some sort of a check. Yeah. So that has to be, and I don't care if it's porn or whatever the hell it is. Don't care.
Well,
if you're ordering liquor,
that becomes
doesn't
the
matter.
point.
Yeah.
The Wall Street Journal writing the second case, which upheld Texas's law requiring porn sites to use reasonable age verification methods to screen out minors. It was initially challenged on the theory that it infringes on the First Amendment rights of adult Texans, because asking them to transmit identification information over the internet involves privacy and security risks. May I just remind you that unlike Griswold v. Connecticut and Planned Parenthood, there is no right to privacy in the Constitution. It's not listed there. But Texas requires age checks to buy a lottery ticket, get a tattoo, or obtain a handgun license. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in the decision, neither obscenity nor the internet is different. No person, adult, or child has a First Amendment right to access speech that is obscene to minors without first submitting proof of age. So you have no constitutional protected right. Justice Thomas says the Texas law has incidental burdens on adults, but it readily survives intermediate judicial scrutiny. Justice Elena Kagan, writing for the liberals, says that the Texas statute is really a direct speech regulation, so the test ought to be strict scrutiny, but then declines to guess whether the law would pass that higher standard. Justice Thomas replies that in her view, it would jeopardize even long-standing rules about showing ID at a physical store. Here's all Justice Kagan will venture. Carefully drawn age verification laws stand a real chance of surviving. What a comfort to the parents of every teenager with a smartphone. For the record, Justice Thomas says 21 states have passed similar statutes. The vote in Texas passed 164 to 1. All right, let's go to the phone lines. What do you guys think of these Supreme Court decisions? And then we'll get into the one as well that's on the table, which has to do with nationwide injunctions coming from district courts. Now, this was one that the Wall Street Journal also wrote about over the weekend, reminding us when liberals hated national injunctions, just not that long ago, like a year ago. So This is one of those both sides. And the decision just pointing out that Congress had not provided this power to a local district court. That's all. So if they wanted to, they could just pass a law to do it. Let's go to Artis in Aurora. Good morning, Artis. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Well, good morning, guys. It just occurs to me now, I'm old. I graduated from high school in 1970. But when we had health class, the girls and boys are separated. The girls learned about getting your period. I have no clue what the boys learned because nobody discussed it. But if, we've got seniors in high school that can't pass those final exams. So why don't we teach math, English, history, sociology, whatever, so they can pass those tests and not teach grade schoolers they can be a different sex?
Well, here's the problem. It's the idea being, Artists, that and again, we're talking about the idea of parents and parents based on their religious affiliations or beliefs being able to opt kids out of the classes. Now, I understand your issue about why do we have to teach the kids some of these sociological things. I'm going to tell you this, that almost uniformly, what teachers will tell you is that the students that arrive at school are woefully underprepared. And that's not just talking about math and science. It's talking about interpersonal relationships. That there are students that show up to school that don't understand that if I want the crayon you're working with, I can't come over, push you off your chair, take the crayon, and then laugh at you. They don't understand that personal interaction. And so some of these things, and I'm not talking about the LGBTQ, but I'm saying some of the programs that are in schools right now that we're mad about are because some of your children are monsters. And you're doing a horrible job parenting, just universally. So I think that's part of it. But let's go back to the idea of just treating, going after the reading, writing, and arithmetic. What do I do, Artists, if I'm and Jeff and I talked about this before the show, if I'm a New Earth creationist? Do I now get to opt my child out of both world history and biology? Do I get to do that? Sciences, we can opt out of sciences. Now let's say that I'm a really, really super fundamentalist on the Christian side of things, but I disagree with the Islamic religion. A lot of the math started in the Islamic community and the Arabic community. So do I now, because I disagree with that religion, I think it's a religion of hate, I don't want my kids being taught anything that came out of that religion, I now need to opt them out of math. The other thing is, in my religious community, we believe in sharing information. So my kids should not, and the other thing is that that work is work time and the other time is for private time and worship time. So because of that, my kids should not be given any sort of take-home assignments or homework. In addition to that, we are a sharing community that believes that we need to share knowledge. So the idea of having my kid take a test alone, no, can't do that. It either needs to be a team test or he needs to be able to open his book and or have access to a computer. But that's all based on my family's religious beliefs. Do I now get to opt my kid out of biology, out of math, and any other test gets to be a group test or an open note, specifically based on my religion? What's your idea about that, Artis?
Well, I have been a Christian as long as I know, by age 5. And we didn't mix our religious beliefs necessarily with learning how to add 2 plus 2 or what happened in World War I and World War II. I think we have and I think our main problem is all the teachers today went through the 60s and 70s where America went berserko on a lot of different items. And so we've got them wanting to teach all of what they accept and learned. When kids can't pass the tests they need to go on to college, we need to change the curriculum.
Well, Artis, it's a great point because right now, in the city of Denver, for instance, 8th graders, 80% of them are not performing at math. I think there's an element of what Bill's arguing that's the appeal to the absurdity. So can you now opt out of every possible thing within a school? Where do you draw the line? That type of thing. What was taking place here was an effort originally by the school to notify parents with regards to LGBTQ promotional material. This wasn't, and this is what was partially litigated. This wasn't just informative. This wasn't just, oh, by the way, there's gay people in the world. It was promotional, and it was put upon kids. And then the school withdrew any effort to notify the parents to give them the option to opt out of it. And so it became very clear that the school was not interested in working with parents on a hotly debated social issue taking place right now where you have Muslim parents, Catholic parents, Protestant parents, all concerned about the curriculum, and the school blatantly, unwillingly wanting to work with parents in order to notify them.
It makes no sense to me. I've never been married, never had children. However, if they don't learn the basics of what they need to get through the rest of their lives, and not that there's 27 different genders that you can choose which one you are, we're going to be a horrible country in about 20 or 30 years.
All right, Artis, Aurora, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. The phone line's open. Go ahead, Bill.
696-1971, 303-696-1971. I disagree with the characterization that what I did is an appeal to absurdity, primarily because we have school districts that are teaching creationism in science classes. So I'm using a real-world example and just asking the next couple. You often refer to it as the slippery slope argument rather than an appeal to absurdity. And so we have school districts that teach creationism inside of science. It is not science. It is religion. It is faith. That is different.
What is?
It's different.
No.
Yes, it is.
No, they are not.
No. Yes. New Earth creationism is not science. That is based on faith and belief. It's not science.
But I disagree that they're different.
Oh, yeah, they
that
are.
One is faith and one is science.
But science and faith are different.
So what is science evaluating?
Science evaluates fact and goes through a rigorous process of verification.
Where did
religion
fact come
does not.
From?
No. It goes through. There's a process inside of science. There is a process to verify things are true or not.
Where did that process come from?
From humans and our brains and God. But the idea is, we believe things based on faith.
Did you say stuff God?
Stuff that is inverifiable that we believe in. That's faith. Science is something that is repeatable, verifiable, testable.
Well,
That's it.
It's a process, but I don't separate it out from faith because that process is ordered. And for it to be ordered, it has to come from an orderer.
But they're not equal because one is faith, one's based on belief, the other one's based on repeatable fact and knowledge. It doesn't mean they necessarily does it. They can both come from the same area. Right. I mean, McDonald's produces both hamburgers and chicken. They do both. So the idea that one doesn't mean chicken. It doesn't mean chicken or hamburgers and chicken sandwich or hamburgers.
Though.
But science is not the issue as far as New Earth creationism. That's different. And he gave us the tools. And if it is science, then we use the tools that God gave us to go through the scientific process in order to prove it being true. That's it. And that exists in the scientific realm. Everything else can exist in the faith realm. They can be separate, and that's okay. And that's part of the problem I have with these school districts that want to conflate the two. It's okay to make them separate. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
that
and what I often
acceptable.
heard when I was in school was these are the theories of creation, because evolution is a theory, right?
Yes.
It's not a law. And so what we were taught was, here are the theories. Some people believe it's a young Earth. Other people believe that it's evolution.
But what's a theory inside of science? And this is a misunderstanding of terms. How does science define theory?
Go ahead, tell me.
Science defines theory based on something that has gone through the scientific process that is observable, testable, repeatable. It's not, we use theory as in, I think this could be true. Science uses it as verifiable.
Right, but so what I'm still telling you is what we were taught, though, was that there was a number of different theories with regards to creation. It seems like what you think should be taught is that it's only evolution in schools.
No, in science class, it should be taught as evolution. In other classes, we can talk about creationism, but creationism should not be next to evolution inside of science classes.
Why not? I think evolution is stupid.
That's fine. You can believe that evolution
is stupid. And I think
stupid.
The problem is stupid.
The problem is on the creation side, it doesn't fit ever inside of the scientific rigors. If you have a hypothesis, how do you test it and how do you verify it? Where you test it? Show me where through the scientific method that creationism has been proven. We've shown evolution has been proven.
Oh, you haven't.
Yes,
Micro,
we have.
No.
Yes, we
Micro evolution you have. Macro you have not. Macro is that we came from fish, Bill.
No, it has
that
been
has not been proven.
No, yes, it has.
No, it has not.
Yes.
No,
the theory of common ancestors.
You have
yes,
microevolution, which means it changes within species.
We have entire species we can go backwards. We have entire species we can go back through the fossil record. We have entire species that exist. Evolution is a fact. It's verifiable.
No, it is not.
It's testable. Yes, it is.
No, microevolution is. Macroevolution. You have big gaps, Bill.
Macro has been proven.
Big gaps, and you know that.
Not universally. We have species that we can trace all the way back. There are gaps in some areas, but it doesn't mean that because we have gaps in some species and we don't have them in others, that it doesn't exist.
Your Catholic faith reconciled with that.
What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. How are they different?
So
why can't God have created the earth and started it together?
Like millions of years ago and
why
then
not?
evolved? Because have you read Genesis? We didn't evolve from fish in Genesis.
I've read Genesis, but remember, God talks about creating the sun on the third day. We can't have days until we create the sun. It doesn't work that way. We don't have time. It doesn't work. We don't have a revolution of the earth around the sun until the sun exists. So we can't get to third. No.
So
the issue is this.
Do you believe we evolved from fish, or did God create us out of dirt?
Both.
All right. So explain. So
are
we created in God's image, or fish created in God's image?
We can be created in God's image, but what if God started the idea and kept it going until we are the creation? He can set that forward. Just like in your life, you have a journey in which you evolve and become a different person at the end of the journey than you do at the beginning.
Change into a monkey, though.
Again, that's physical, but I'm talking about personal.
That's what evolution is.
No, but I'm using evolution because it is a commonality term. The idea that you become a different person at the end.
Right.
We have seen macroevolution, so macroevolution exists. We can trace macroevolution through the fossil record. That exists as well. It is verifiable. I understand, but science disagrees with you. We've been able to prove it through the things that God gave us. All of the tools, carbon dating, everything else. We have the ability. What we can't prove is near-Earth evolution. We can't prove that. There's nothing that shows that exists. And so the idea, though, that we come in and we say that God created the earth and he didn't create light until third day, we've constrained God based on our tiny human brains on what actually a day is. We've constrained God's path based on our understanding of it.
Relied on his word. But again, help me understand what the Bible says is that, very clear on this in Genesis, that we were created different. We were created in God's image. We were created last. And then we were created to have dominion over the animals. There's a clear distinction there. There's nothing in Scripture, literally nothing, that gives you the indication that we evolved from a lower species over millions of years. And then Christ himself died to save us from the sins when we're just higher evolved beings. There's nothing. So that's where I go back to the question, how do you reconcile Catholic teaching, which isn't anywhere near
what
you just advanced with regards to evolution?
I understand that, but let's go back to who wrote the Bible and who God was speaking to at that point. If God would have talked to him about the basic elements of refrigeration that we all take for granted every day of our lives, that person wouldn't understand it. Coming to that person at that instance and talking about evolution wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't work.
So this is what C.S. Lewis calls chronological snobbery. That
No,
somehow
not necessarily.
we are more enlightened at this point and then look back on the previous generations and go, well, they were clearly idiots.
Oh, no, not at all. I disagree with that. I disagree with that because what I'm talking about is that at that point, it's not that they were idiots. They don't have the context or the relationship to understand what was going on. That's it. They just didn't have the ability or the context because they can't fathom where we are now. That's okay. We could have someone that comes here from thousands of years in the future and say X, Y, and Z happened.
But
we can't even imagine
let's get to
that
some fundamentals
because
here.
of where we are. At
Does
some
God
point, people couldn't
create
imagine us traveling faster
or do we
than
evolve?
humans.
Does God create humans or do they evolve?
Yes. Yes. They're both true.
So there's another force out there that evolves.
No. Why can't that force be God?
So why would he say that he created us when he evolves us?
Why are they different?
Oh, because one requires millions of years and one requires like instant creation. Because it seems like there's another force.
Hold on a sec here.
This other force is that God...
Aren't you using your constraints of language and understanding and applying them to God?
I'm just using the Bible, man.
No. You're using your constraint on language and understanding to define what God is doing. You're talking about God creating something. What's his time frame? What's his timeline?
Yeah.
How fast does time move for God?
Well, so he's outside of time.
Okay, so the idea of creation may not necessarily be the instant point you're talking about. It could take millions of years. Yes. But we don't know that because God is outside of time. So for him, it happens in an instant, when for us, it happens for millions of years. Just like the lifespan of a fly, we seem immortal. But the lifespan of a fly is there. But you're applying fly's logic to human logic.
You want to create this idea that there's an evolution that changes species over time, right? Because we were fish at one point, and then we became... lizards and then monkeys.
Us as far as
humans,
we had a common ancestor. We had a common ancestor, and we didn't become monkeys. We didn't become monkeys. That's a totally different path. The idea of us evolving out of monkeys is incorrect because we share a common ancestor, but we were never monkeys, ever.
What drove this path?
God.
Okay, can I say that in a science class?
Well, here's the idea. It depends. If it is provable for the scientific method, sure. But if not, it probably belongs in the belief section. But it doesn't mean that you can't believe it, nor can it be true in your heart.
Then we're back to evolution without God in science.
Not necessarily. The idea is how you're addressing it, and that's fine. That's fine. But if it makes you angry about the idea that we can talk about evolution, you feel like you've taken God out of it, and we don't have that context, that's fine. That's okay. But we have those disagreements, all sorts of educational issues. That's fine. And that we've had that disagreement inside of... the world for years as far as how people developed and things like that. Remember, at one point, we held slaves in this country because we were certain that God created people with darker skin inferior to humans. That was that was a stone cold fact. That was accepted and taught by the church in some areas. It was referred to,
areas, but then the church led the abolition movement.
However,
too.
It was referred to in all of the founding documents of the Confederacy. All of them referred to the idea that God showed that the white man is superior. And that was a fundamental truth. I know. So sometimes what humans feel is a fundamental truth based on their belief system can be incorrect. That's it.
No,
that's
it. I think you're painting with a very broad brush. You go, some people motivated by faith got things wrong. Ergo, everybody motivated by faith is getting everything wrong.
No, not at all. Didn't say that at all.
But we're talking evolution. You went to slavery in
No,
the Civil War.
What I was doing that because you were talking about what we held based on belief, what we felt was true and backed up by science and what everybody knew based on belief. And at the time, our belief, based on what God had shown us, was that other races were inferior. That's not scientifically proven or true, and that's fine. That means we got something wrong. That's okay.
Of course.
And we've gotten stuff wrong in science as well. Science is full of a whole bunch of stuff that they've gotten wrong.
From bat soup.
That's a bad example, honestly. That's a really bad example.
No, it's a really good example of how science can be co-opted by an agenda to drive stuff forward. All right,
because the idea it didn't come from bat soup. That's the idea. I mean, you're even misrepresenting where the. Well, that's good. You don't even get the science right. You don't have the basic science right. That's the problem here.
It was an appeal to the absurd to get a point across. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. I'm going to go us back to the original question.
Yeah, probably.
Which is 3 U.S. Supreme Court cases. One about notifying parents with regards to LGBTQ curriculum. Number 2 about age verification and pornography. And number 3 about reducing the power of district court judges to implement nationwide injunctions. In my mind, all 3 bring about a better America. They're limiting the power of government, which is good, and are protecting families, which is great. So I'm thrilled and proud of the U.S. Supreme Court. What do you think? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to a spicy 9 o'clock hour of the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Bill and I are often the types of guys that would have those big debates, grab a few beers in college, and then try to solve the world's problems. That's where the conversation went last segment. 3 U.S. Supreme Court cases. 1, parental notification. 2, has to do with pornography and whether or not kids can access that. That should have been a 9-0 decision. And then the third one on the nationwide mandates coming from the lower district courts. Bill, on that one, I want to ask you, what do you think is going to happen now without these nationwide injunctions coming from lower district courts?
Our court systems are going to be more bogged down. The workload for the Supreme Court is going to increase rapidly. Bunch of lawyers are going to get way, way, way rich. And here in about 3 to 9 years, Republicans will be crying big, giant crocodile tears about how come the injunctions don't stop everybody across the nation from doing the thing they don't like. That's what's going to happen. That's it. That's all. The
they Supreme Court said that Congress could easily adjust this. Just put into law that and remember, the Supreme Court's job is just to interpret law. It's not to make policy. So if your law doesn't allow for it, well, then it can't. So Congress, just give this power to local district courts.
Yeah, but have you seen Congress?
My point exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing is they can't get this done. So
they can't scratch their back.
So I'm okay with the idea that, okay, we are going to restrict this based on injunctions and everything else. Okay, fine. But I don't think they really understand what they're saying. And I wish they would spend more time on other issues, saying, well, you have the ability to fix this. Why don't you go back and fix this because you have the ability, Congress? They don't demur very often unless it seems to be in line with what they're doing. But yes, they should. They should make Congress do it, and if they don't. But again, remember that it now means that if you file a lawsuit, it may only, in an injunction, it may only cover the people in the lawsuit. So in order to be covered yourself, you got to go file a lawsuit. So how many lawsuits do you think may be filed by lawyers looking for billable hours about illegal immigrants? How many?
Go to law school, kids. Go to law school. All right. Weather today, 79 degrees, scattered thunderstorms. And tomorrow, 90, then up to 93 on Wednesday. If your air conditioner's dealing with problems, our line froze up. And then we just ended up with an old system. I think we're the third owners of this house, something like that. It's just been a while, and we need to get it replaced. We called our friends at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. They absolutely nailed it for us. One-day installation for new AC and furnace, no stress, personal service from start to finish. They even called to follow up, make sure everything was perfect. One time they came out on a Sunday with no emergency charge and no trip fee just to make sure everything was great. I was like, guys, come out Monday. Don't take your Sundays to deal with my AC issue. No, they came by out and did it. It was awesome. Listen to the deals they got. A free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. Price match value guarantee on equipment. Free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Family couldn't be happier. Give them a call. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. 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 That number again, 720-851-1691. We'll get to Spencer in a second. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Let's go to the phone line. Spencer, Denver. Good morning, Spencer.
Morning.
Hey, guys. Hey, Bill. I want to pick your brain for a sec. Can you think of any instances in the past in which conservatives were using the legal system to block the president's agenda on a nationwide level? I'm seriously asking this. I can't think of any. I'm wondering if there's any
student
that
debt
come to mind
relief.
for you.
Student debt
and
relief.
Mifepristone was the other one.
Yeah, student debt relief, mifepristone. That'd be it. That'd be the first ones
Was
that are
that-
that would be most recent. But we can go back to your Obama administration stuff.
Were those after the Supreme Court rulings, or did those lead to a Supreme Court ruling?
Led to. Because you have to file the case first locally before it gets to the Supremes. You can't directly file to the Supremes, despite what Mike Lindell tried to do several times.
But there is a difference on the sheer number of injunctions, and the Democrats making the argument, well, Trump's just making unconstitutional executive orders. That's why there's so many injunctions.
He has issued more executive orders than anybody of his predecessors. So the math would tell you if he issues more, you have the opportunity for more injunctions. That's just how it works. If I go out there and I buy more shoes, I have more shoes available.
That's just how it works.
Oh, yeah,
the Democrats are definitely using the courts.
I guess, how does it become a nationwide injunction? There's two specific court cases that I know of. One was a gentleman in Mississippi who sued for his right to own fully automatic machine guns. And the other one was a court case only for gun owners of America and the rare breed forced reset trigger. Those court cases, they gave relief to both plaintiffs in that case, but they didn't make it nationwide injunctions. It was only specific to those. So I guess, what gives them the right to make it a nationwide injunction and not a nationwide injunction?
There are a couple of things that I believe have to be satisfied, but someone has to do sometimes with a court that's argued. But someone like George Brockler would give us a much better. What I'm hesitating for is I have some ideas that I believe are true inside my head, but I'm not certain I have everything buttoned up. And lawyers are really particular about making sure that I dot the i's and cross the t's.
Someone turn on the Brockler bat sign.
Yeah, we need the Brockler bat sign. Unfortunately, our closeness is just hit because he will give us exactly. Because what will happen is whatever I tell you, Spencer, George is going to come back and say, well, Billy was wrong about this, this, and this, and I will be wrong about that. So I just don't know the facts, but we'll bring it to you tomorrow if we can.
If you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. It was a scorcher, including having Richard Holtorf on. A lot of fun. Thank you. For everyone who listened, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, KNUS. Enjoy your Monday.